What are you seeing in the sport of boxing in terms of like different genetics and maybe even different ethnicities and stuff like that?
Honestly, I mean, the main lesson is that looks don't matter. I think a lot of the girls, at least, don't really look much like athletes. I don't know if there's a difference in the way that they train, like females versus male. I know that guys are always or are more often in the weight room than the girls just because of it makes them feel good. Like they like going in and benching and knowing that they're capable kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The girls really avoid it at all costs. And it does, you can see it just based on their body composition.
But then when they go to move though, they move really athletically and flawlessly.
And they're fast and they're strong.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't really look like that's how they're going to hit.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, because, for example, in jiu-jitsu, and people are running away from this stigma at this point, but there's a stigma that, like, number one, technique over strength, which is true, but they believe that if an athlete lifts, then they won't be able to move well, they'll use more strength than technique, etc. And some people will not lift because of that. But now in jiu-jitsu, you're seeing a lot of the top guys and girls, they're jacked because they also do resistance training. Mm-hmm. So in boxing, on the female or male side, is there a stigma of like you shouldn't lift because you'll throw punches slower or you'll muscle punches? Is that still something? And do you believe there's truth to that?
Yeah, so boxing is super archaic when it comes to training styles and strategies.
Move this a little closer to you.
Yeah. Boxing is super archaic when it comes to training strategies and techniques. So they are very kind of against lifting for boxing. I think it just comes from an lack of knowledge really on how to actually use strength training principles for sports specifically. Mm-hmm. And because I think maybe they correlate lifting with bodybuilders or lifting with powerlifters. And there's just many ways that you can organize training depending on the purpose or depending on the goal, what you're trying to do, right? So, I mean, the easiest way that I can explain it is like imagining a force velocity curve, right? At 100%, like 100% of your max. How fast can you move a 1 rep max deadlift? Pretty slow, right? So that's going to be a low speed, high intensity movement. And then if we go to the opposite end of the spectrum, like say a weight that's 30% of your max, you can probably move that pretty explosively, right? So that's going to be low load or low intensity, high velocity. Working too much on either end of the curve is not going to be the most optimal way to organize your training or to organize resistance training for the purpose of sports. What you want to do is you want to capitalize on the entire force velocity curve and train the entire range. Yeah, you want to, in the off season, maybe build your tissue tolerance, your capacity, and try to test your athletes, maybe not a 1 rep max, but maybe a 3 rep max or a 5 rep max where you're increasing the tensile ability of your muscles, where you're building more robust tendons and ligaments and connective tissue, you know? And then obviously emphasizing, so it's the same with sport-specific training, like the specific adaptations to imposed demands. You want to spend the most amount of time doing the movements that are at the velocity, at the speed, and at the weight that you're going to be practicing in. Mm-hmm. But any kind of end of the spectrum, whether it's at the very top or at the very bottom, is going to have diminishing returns. You know, people who do, I don't know, like crazy, like shadow boxing with dumbbells. There's diminishing returns. Like, yeah, you want to build maybe some muscle endurance on your shoulders. Cool, go ahead and do it. But to say that that's going to make your punches faster, it'd be a stretch.
For that, actually, quick question. Mm-hmm. I've seen, I don't know the brand, but you know what I'm talking.
Egg weights.
Do you think like something like that is actually applicable since it's light enough, or is it a reach?
Might maybe mimic a glove.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly. It can help. Mm-hmm. It also might not. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like that kind of defining factor. But like anything, you know, law of diminishing returns. If you lift too much, too frequent, yeah, you might get slower. You might get stiffer. Mm-hmm. If you don't lift at all, then you might get slower as well. You might get weak.
Have you seen some good examples of people that have maybe lifted and did some boxing or combat sports simultaneously and were able to integrate it and do well? Or has it been, because a lot of times we're looking at people and we're like, oh man, that guy's super tight and he throws punches like a bodybuilder, but the guy is a bodybuilder. And so it makes sense that it's going to take you or anybody else time to get loose and to be like a boxer. But do you see, like in some of the boxing establishments that you've been to, have you seen some guys who kind of have managed both over the years?
No, not really, honestly. The only place where I would say maybe it's at Phil Daru's, where there's a bunch. I mean, he is the coach and he has a strength training background, so he knows kind of how hard to push them and what exercises to have them do and how often and all that stuff. But that's been really the only place where I've seen so many combat sport athletes actually practicing strength movements.
Power Project family, I hope you guys are enjoying this bite. Did you know that cocaine increases your dopamine levels by 2.5 times above baseline?
Okay.
Why is this important?
Why is this important, Nsima?
Because, a really cool thing that we learned from Andrew Huberman is that getting yourself into cold water or cold water exposure, like the cold plunge, does the same thing.
What?
2.5 times above baseline. And you have those sustained dopamine levels for up to 4 or 5 hours after cold exposure. This is why we love cold plunging so much. I cannot say this enough. It has been one of the best additions to our daily routines. If you can't already, just take cold showers. But if you want to take it to the next level, get the cold plunge. And Andrew, how can they do it?
You guys got to head over to thecoldplunge.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $150 off. I keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face and not blue from the cold, blue from holding my breath. This has been the absolute best thing I've ever done for my mental health. Like I said, I can't say it enough. So again, thecoldplunge.com, promo code PowerProject, links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to this podcast.
Phil Daru reminds me of like an action hero.
Yeah.
Like when he showed us a bunch of tactics to like, I don't know, self-defense type stuff. And even just him like putting his hands on me for 2 seconds, I was like, holy fuck. This guy is so strong. It's wild. And he's showing like these knees and these elbows. I'm like, that shit would fucking
He's so
hurt.
explosive, so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Unbelievable.
For sure.
I sent Andrew this video of this guy, Teofimo Lopez. I just heard about him. I'm not nearly as into boxing as you are. But there was somebody who was making commentary on the way that he lifts weights. I don't know if there's any
I can't wait.
of him like lifting in there. But see if you can skip to it. But pretty much when he lifts, he doesn't just like when he does bicep curls, he doesn't just do them like this, right? I don't know if we'll be able to get any, like when he does things, he tries to typically involve his whole body and actually maybe it shows it a little bit there. But you'll see like, for example, when he's doing those tricep movements or his shoulder movements, he uses momentum and he uses his whole body to move the weight rather than like a bodybuilder focuses here.
Isolation.
I've seen him doing dumbbell curls and he uses his whole body to move load. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on something like that, because whereas a bodybuilder will do the most weight possible and try to really isolate the muscle tissue, a guy like this, he'll try to get everything moving together. And I think that could be something that if somebody does try to lift weights, could be beneficial because they're not isolating here. They're moving and there's still movement involved in that while doing load. What do you think of that?
I think two parts to that. So obviously reps using momentum have their point in time, like in bodybuilding even, right? What's the name of those reps, like specifically?
Force
Like a
Forced
force
rep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Obviously-
a bent over row, and you're using some body language to try to do the bent over row, and you can make an argument that you move the weight further.
Or that you're getting more volume in,
because you're using more weight, moving
Exactly.
at a greater distance, so
Exactly.
forth.
Maybe the tension is not the same as if you do it slow, but you're accumulating more volume, and we know that more volume leads to more hypertrophy. But I think for somebody like that, I think it's just, again, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. I think that it's really important to separate the adaptations when you're thinking about your own training. So what exactly is he trying to do by swinging a bicep or a dumbbell in a bicep curl? Is he trying to, right? I think it's lack of understanding of training. Like, what are the three most important things to grow a muscle if that's what he's trying to do? Which it looks like it, right? Like he's there pumping iron, he's doing his bicep curls. To me, it looks like he's trying to get his biceps bigger or stronger. And is that the best way to do it?
That's one thing I'm curious about, because we could look at it as an idea of isolating, right? So if your only goal is to make the bicep bigger and stronger, then yeah, you might want to isolate so you can move more load and focus on that muscle. But if you're still somebody who's focused on a sport that has movement involved, maybe you'd subtract some load, still get some bicep stimulation, but the body still knows how to work together to activate that bicep through a range of motion. That's just what I'm thinking as far as application's concerned. For an athlete in that sport, so he wouldn't be building muscle as fast as the bodybuilder that increases load, focuses on tension on the muscle.
So he's just wasting his time.
You think he's just wasting his time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You focus on the adaptation that you want to improve, and you make sure that the exercise reflects that very clearly. If not, it's wasting your time.
There's specific ways to get stronger, and there's specific ways for muscle hypertrophy, and he may not be really nailing down either one of those things.
If you want to get a bigger muscle, load the muscle. If you want to get a stronger muscle, practice the movement. They're two different things. Is he trying to get a stronger bicep curl? I don't know, a stronger swinging bicep curl, or is he trying to actually grow that muscle? So I think first and foremost, we're making assumptions, right? We don't know really what he is.
We have no idea.
We don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe for what he's trying to do, that's the right exercise. We really don't know.
Yeah.
But always matching the exercise with a goal, making sure that you're differentiating. Okay, are you trying to improve this person's coordination or mobility or stability versus are we trying to improve this person's strength? Versus are we trying to improve his absolute strength or his sport-specific strength? Because also those are two different adaptations based on the force velocity curve. Or are we trying to make this muscle grow? And how I would approach that is very different depending on what exactly is the goal. So I think a lot of people get caught on that kind of just exercising for the sake of exercising. And I think it really is a waste of time. There's a concept that's called dynamic correspondence, and that's basically the ability of a coach to, or choosing an exercise that best fits the person's goal, instead of putting things together at random that, will they help? Maybe, probably. Will this guy maybe, get rounder biceps? Yeah, probably. But is that the best exercise to get a more rounded bicep? No.
Power Project family, we appreciate you checking out this clip. Check out another one. Just go check out another one. Or comment down below and let us know what you liked about this one. But we love you guys, and we're going to keep bringing you the heat. So comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, okay? Peace.